And welcome to the 101st series of the Lenten Preaching Series. We're delighted that you're here, and I encourage you, if you have not already, to take one of the lineups of our amazing speaker lineup this year. And just a reminder, next week, the Irish poet Padre Gotuma will be here on Wednesday. A perennial favorite, Barbara Brown Taylor, author and priest, will be here Thursday. And Scott Morris of the Church Health Center will be here on Friday. So great lineup next week. Padraig and Barbara Brown Taylor will be in conversation Wednesday night. And as well as we offer a relatively new event, Silence in the City, on Tuesdays. A great time for meditation. You're in our historic nave, and you're welcome for any or all. And a reminder, too, to silence your cell phones today. Please take a moment to do that. And as well, we'll have, of course, the Episcopal Bookshop and Thistle and Bee Ministry have little pop-up stores in our great hall. And if you have not done so already, I hope you'll have your lunch today at the Waffle Shop. The aroma of fish pudding has been wafting in the air. And believe me, it eats better than it sounds. It's an honor to have my friend, Dr. Catherine Meeks. I got to meet her 5 years ago on a racial healing pilgrimage that she sponsored for the Southeastern Regional Episcopal Priest. And it was just an amazing time together. And what really impressed me about Catherine is the Absalom Jones Center is on a college campus with two other colleges, I think, nearby. And Catherine's, the relationship she's built over generations, how students were flocking to her. And the youngest participant in our pilgrimage, a young man in his early 20s, fell in love with Catherine, and throughout the pilgrimage, he called her Yoda. I think that has more to do with her wisdom than her stature. She is a wisdom bearer to all of us. And what also has impressed me, too, is her experiences as a maid coming through the generations of the civil rights movement and her evolution to become a doctor and a renowned authority on this. She's always reaching out further, though. She has reached out to the Absalom Jones Center now. When I arrived there, she showed me the resources for Native Americans, which is something important to me, being married to a woman who's been discovering her Cherokee heritage, but also Asian Americans, Latino community. She's looking out for anyone who's been disenfranchised or has felt left out. And Catherine has that kind of heart. She's willing to enter into dialogue with almost anyone, and her openness to that is amazing. And we're delighted to have Catherine here. We will, after our centering music, we'll read a word of Scripture, and then Catherine will come forward for her message. A reading from Psalm 139. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, that I know very well.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me all the way in the back? Okay, because I want to make sure. It's so good to be here and to be with Paul again. And I remember our Justice Pilgrimage was quite a wonderful week. And it was an experiment, and I was very worried, just in case you didn't notice. They probably didn't notice, but it's been so wonderful to be in Memphis because I grew up in Monroe, Marianna, Arkansas. I was born in El Dorado, and I left Brinkley. I graduated from high school in Brinkley, which is about 40, 50 miles from here, I think, declaring that I would probably not set foot in Arkansas again if I could help it. I haven't lived there, but I've been back to visit. And Memphis was the big, big city, like going to New York or somewhere for us when I was growing up. And my father died here in the John Gaston Hospital, and my brothers and sisters and I stayed at the Lorraine Motel before Dr. King was murdered there. So, and I'm introducing my memoir, A Quilted Life, Reflections of a Sharecropper's Daughter, in Memphis for the first time. So it feels like that's all real serendipitous, that God's hand is in this somehow, because this is the first offering of my memoir. I don't know if it's in, I think it's supposed to be here, that you can purchase it. And if it is, great. If not, purchase it from wherever you can find it. But it seems very serendipitous that I should have that book be publicly, for the first time, introduced in this space that is so connected to that journey that's described in the book. And I'm delighted for my friend Tom Mumberg, who worked so hard to help get me gigs in Memphis. So thank you again, Tom. I appreciate everybody's participation in helping me to do the work that I have been called to do. So I want to talk about something that I'm working on myself very hard, and I think that you should always be teaching what you're learning and practicing it to the best of your ability. I say it's important, I believe, for us to practice what we preach or preach what we practice. Because if we don't do that, then it has got no foundation. We're just talking out of the top of our heads, and that doesn't really make that much difference to people, because people are looking, I think, to connect heart to heart. I believe that. I believe that. If they're not looking to do it, they need to be told that that's what they do need to be looking to do. Because head to head is okay, but head to head has gotten us into a lot of trouble. And I think that the distance from our head to our heart, literally, is probably the longest journey we will ever take in our entire life. Because it takes a long time to get the stuff up here to meld with the stuff in our hearts, to create the person that God had in mind when we got sent to the earth. And that, to me, is always the big question. God, what did you have in mind? Rather than what do I have in mind? To decenter the universe for ourselves, to take us out of the center of our own universe, is maybe the first step we have to take toward moving to where God wants us to be. I don't know. I'm pondering all of this and trying to figure it out. And this perception makes sense to me. So I've really been working with this whole business about universals and particulars, because it's real dicey when you talk about race particularly, because white people love to say they don't see color. And I want to ask you today to remove that sentence from your vocabulary. And never, if you could help it, never say it again. Because to say that says, I don't see you. I don't recognize you. I don't acknowledge your particular way of being here on the planet. Now, I think that I always try to be open to hearing how God likes to see stuff, because my way can be kind of warped, you know. I think that that comment means I want to see beyond your color. I want to see you. I want to try to know who you are. I'm hoping that that is what is behind that kind of comment, but I'm not quite sure. And sometimes I think it's kind of a denial of all of the realities that go with the histories of people of color. But whatever it is a phrase that needs to be retired forever. So I'm preoccupied with this discussion about the value of particularity up against the reality of universality. I am this particular person sitting here with this hair, this skin, this body, this perspective, those narratives that have been created by the journey that I've been on in this world. That makes me this person. And there is nobody else like me on the planet. Fearfully and wonderfully made, the psalm says, as is true for every one of you here. But then that's the particularity. That's the corner over here. That is where we've got to come to terms with. I have to come to terms with that I'm not gonna be 4'3". I'm not gonna be Twiggy. Some of you are old enough to remember Twiggy, the little skinny white model. I'm not gonna be her. I'm not gonna be somebody who doesn't think the way I think. You know, I could think some differently, but my cultural narratives have been set in motion, and I'm pretty much that person. And part of my work in order to be human is to accept those particularities, to be conversant with them, to accept them, to celebrate them, and to know that that is the ground upon which I can stand. And to get clear-headed about that, not egotistical, not wishy-washy. Howard Thurman says if you don't come to grips with these kinds of things in the core of yourself, you will be blown by every wind that comes like the willow tree blows in the wind. So you get clear-headed about all of that. And then you understand that there's another whole piece of reality that has to do with universality. As much as you are particular, you're like every other human being on the planet. The same. That's a paradox, and we have a problem with paradoxes. We love to be fundamentalist, though we like to poke fun at fundamentalists that sound a little off the wall. All of us wish that we could make a choice and never have to interrogate it with any other information. That's basically what fundamentalists want to do. This is my position, and there is no other truth because this is what I have come to. Well, this is true. The particularity that I've just described is true. So is the universality piece. And the challenge we have as human beings is to learn how to navigate them. Many years ago, I was in a hospital room waiting for surgery, and I had a 4-year-old at home, and I was really freaked out about the whole thing. Because if I died, who was going to take care of my little boy? I was scared, really scared. And I don't know why on earth I was watching Phil Donahue in my hospital room. I have no idea. I would have much better sense than that now. But I was. And the program was this interview he was doing with people from the Ku Klux Klan. And I was lying there in my bed thinking about my own fear and listening to those folks talk And for the first time in my life, I understood their fear. I understood that their vitriol toward people like me was grounded in a deep-seated fear that they didn't even know they had. And I could sense it and relate to it because I was so connected to my own fear. And that's universal. Particularly, I'm the black woman in the hospital room. They're the Ku Klux Klan sitting in their house talking about why they have to keep life the way they've got to keep it. Universally, we are connected by our emotion of fear, which has no boundaries, has no color, has no narrative, has no particularity. And that's true across the board. We are connected by many of the same things. We want to be treated right. We want to be recognized as being worthy. Those are universals. So why can't we deal with the divisiveness that we have created in our world a little bit better? Because we always start up here somewhere. We want to mostly go do a book study. That's where we want to start. When we would do better to start with a truth-telling. Let's get in the room and talk about who we really are. What scares us? What makes us happy? What do we hope for? What, as Dr. King would say, what are we willing to die for? It'll take a while maybe to get to that. But to talk about what's in our hearts might be way more helpful than many of the places we choose to start. And many of the ways that people try to help folks become human is to take a whole bunch of shortcuts. We learn how to be better at manipulating language, or better at playing the game, or being politically correct. There is no place in the church for that nonsense. In the church, in the communities of faith, there's no place for it anywhere, but I'm so impatient with it inside the communities of faith. We need to try to be authentic and honest and tell each other the truth. So I'm scared, I'm hungry, I feel denigrated, I feel I don't know how to use power, I feel that I might abuse power if I have some, so I'm afraid of power. One young woman told me, one young Asian American pastor said to me, I'm so afraid of abusing power. But she stood up in a room with 100 people, most of whom she didn't know, and made that confession, which says to me, she knows more about using power than she thinks. And I've spent a lot of time unpacking that with her over the last few months. So what is this thing that we need to do? We say so many things from these pulpits that we don't do anything about. We just heard the words, and we've heard them 1,000 times, and we hear them 1,001 times, and it makes no more difference than it did 999 times ago. So I think that it's time during this season of Lent for all of us in this room, because I'm talking very much to myself as you hear me speak right now, because this is a huge issue. I do not want to be denigrated. I do not want to be marginalized. I do not want to be reduced so somebody else can be more comfortable. I'm not having it, actually. It's called being empowered. And I'm claiming that for myself. As a little girl growing up right up the road here from whichever way Arkansas is from where I'm sitting, growing up there being told that I did not have a place, that the world couldn't accommodate me, that I didn't need to dream, I didn't need to think of education, I didn't need to think of myself beyond the cotton field. And I said, no, thank you. I'll think what I want. The brain is in my head, not yours. Now, of course, I didn't say that when I was 10 years old. But that's what I thought, and that thinking led me to other things, like when we would go to the segregated doctor's office and I would refuse to sit down. Refuse to sit down without even knowing exactly why I was refusing, except that the waiting room that we had was so pitiful compared to the white people's waiting room that I just passed by. So I figured I would protest. If my mother had known what I was doing, she would have given me a whipping, because she would have been scared for me to be having that kind of resistive attitude at 12 or 13 years old. And I don't even know if I knew what I was doing myself. But there was that thing that's in every one of us that says, you're here, you're human, and you have a right to be here. Never mind what your particulars are. If you're black, if you're brown, if you're white, if you're female, if you're male, if you're whatever, you have life. That life has been given by God, and you have a place on this planet. That is the message. Otherwise, how do we make sense out of anything? How did some people get here without God knowing it? I don't think so. We act like that, though, don't we? There's a hierarchy of human value. Some folks are more important, some folks. I can't stand all that nonsense. It is absolute nonsense to think any one of us is any better than any other one of us, anybody on the planet, in the eyesight of the Creator. So my job is to try to be as conversant with the Creator as I can be. Now, I have to be honest. Some of the Creator's creatures, I would like to give a one-way ticket to Mars. But I don't get to make that choice. And that's good for them that I don't. But I also know, as soon as I say that and feel that and write it in my journal and think it, I also know that God is saying, that's your brother, that's your sister. I made them, I love them just like I love you, and just as much. And you just have to deal with where you are until you get to some other place. And if I'm trying to really stay focused and do what I need to do, eventually I will get to see the universals that connect me to that particular that I don't want to be bothered with. I don't like egotistical, self-centered narcissists, but there's plenty of them running around on the planet. And I have to love them. Oh my God, I have to love them. And so I have to really interrogate what kind of love are they going to get. Not the same love my sons are going to get. And I'm not going to fool myself about it. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to articulate that. But on the universal side, I know this is a person who wants not to be denigrated, the same as I don't want to be denigrated. They just haven't figured out how to go about making that happen. So they think narcissism works. And they try it, and it's my job to say, narcissism won't get you there. And I have to live in a way that makes me not become narcissistic to make that point. And it's not about judging them, it's about accepting them. The universal and the particular. No, I'm not going to quit being a black woman. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to try to explain it. I'm not going to try to make it easier. I'm not going to say a word except this is who God sent me in the world. This is the body I got sent in. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Now, I also know that I'm connected to the mother in the Ku Klux Klan because she is a person. And God sent her in her white body, not into the world to hate me, but somebody told her some bad stuff along the way, and she got on a track that she needs to get off of. And she's not going to get off of it by me hating her. And I'm not going to quit being black because she hates me. or I'm not going to quit living and being empowered and doing what I need to do in the world because people like that would like for me to go away. And they're not going to get to put me on a one-way trip to Mars either. And here we are. Particular, universal, has got to learn to be in conversation with each other. So you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're black, you're white, you are transgendered, you are a native indigenous person, you're Asian, you're Latinx, you're able, you're not as able to do some stuff. You know, I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I have a cane here. It does not matter. Those are particulars that simply have to be put into the equation with the universals. And God connects to us much, much more at that universal place of all of us. All of us are equal. All of us are loved. Do you know, as you sit here and listen to me, do you have trouble believing that God loves everybody on the planet? Don't answer me, answer yourself. That God loves everybody on the planet equally. The person living under the bridge, the person living without shelter, and the person sitting in the White House or the King's throne. In God's eyesight, they're the same. We're the ones that put the values on folks based upon their particularity, rather than understanding universally we're human beings and we actually need and want much of the same thing. Now, I don't really want to be president, and I certainly don't want to be in royalty, but I want to be treated right. I want to be respected. I want to be allowed the space to be the person that I have come to understand God wanted me to be when I got sent here. And that is what everybody wants, whether they know that or not. And I think everybody's out to try to get that. Howard Thurman says you need to ask yourself, what are you after? In this life, what are you after? And most people don't want to live and die and be forgotten. That's a universal. You know, even folks that do bad things somehow want to be remembered, and they just have no clue how to make that work. Now, I'm not somebody who thinks that you don't need to be held accountable for bad behavior. Believe me. I learned that lesson from Melissa Alberta Jackson Meeks, my mother, that whatever you did, you take responsibility for it. But I want to be able to see the humanity in the worst person on the planet. And if that person is harming somebody, they need to be dealt with. And if they're not harming somebody, but just living a miserable life, then it's my job to do the best I can to tell them there's some other ways they might think of doing life. And if they choose to listen, good for them. If they don't choose to listen, it's up to them. It's between them and God. It's got nothing to do with me. My job is to be authentic, to be honest, to be loving, to be clear, and to be willing to be on the journey. So, and it requires a lot of humility to do what I'm talking about. And, you know, humility is a hard thing to come by, because we have to do a lot of dethroning the kings and queens inside of our heads to get to humility, to get to being willing to say, I made a mistake, I'm wrong, I'm on a high horse today that I need to get off of. I am afraid, basically, because underneath all of that stuff is usually a really nice little strip of fear. Somebody's not going to give me enough credit. Somebody's not going to pay enough attention to me. I mean, I still struggle with that, you know. Isn't it interesting how we go through a day, and at the end of the day, 15 wonderful things happen to us, and one thing that was negative, and the one negative thing gets priority. We'll think about it and chew over it and ruminate and maybe even let it ruin the joy of the 15 good things that happen. I do it, you do it, we all know we do it. But why are we doing that? Because we have got this little ego notion that everything's got to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, then whatever's wrong shouldn't have happened because I deserve for a day to be perfect. Well, really? You know, I was the other day thinking somebody had done something pretty bad to me, and I was pretty upset about it. And then I thought, you know what? Think about Jesus. Take a minute and think about Jesus. Jesus got treated pretty badly too and didn't really do anything, right? I mean, was there any crime? Do we have any crime that we can lodge against Jesus? No. So then who do I think I am? That somebody can't do something not nice to me? And that's beside the point. The point is, what am I going to do with it? What am I going to, first of all, learn from it? You know, when I saw I read Howard Thurman saying you should take criticism and praise in the same way. And I thought, Dr. Thurman, I just don't know what you're talking about. I just don't know. I mean, I see these words, I understand what they say, but how do you do that? If you criticize me, okay. If you praise me, okay. Because neither your criticism nor your praise have anything really to do with me. It has to do with your experience of me, your projections of me. You know, so let me not let myself be defined by criticism or praise. That was the point. It took me a long time to be willing to see the point, because I don't like to be criticized. Do you? No, we don't. You're not just waking up in the morning and saying, let me see now, where can I find my critics? And it's not what we do. It's like, well, how dare you? You mean I'm not perfect? Oh my goodness, you must be really bad. You can't see how perfect I am. My word, let me help you clear your head up and your eyes so you can see, rather than, oh my goodness, there's something else for me to learn. So I don't know what time it is, and I don't want to run over here and be off messing up everybody's schedule. But what I want to say is the world, the planet needs us to get it together. The planet needs us to stop fiddling around and playing religion. The planet needs us to decide if we're going to really go with God or if we're just going to go with the culture and smear God over it and try to call it faith. The planet needs us to get real. The planet needs us to do better than we're doing. We need to decide who we're going to be and what we're going to be and how we're going to be and if we're going to be expressions of being fearfully and wonderfully made and able to see that in ourselves and all of the folks that we come in contact with. I need to do it, you need to do it, everybody needs to do it. And none of us have got a corner on that market. We're all wounded, trying to find the path. And we need to hold each other's hands and be loving and be kind and be accepting, no matter who we are talking to or what we think they represent. God bless you, and be brave.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. You never stop teaching, and you never stop learning.
Yeah. Thank you.
Catherine, give us a moment to get her settled, and she would love to greet you as you would like to come by and to speak a word to her. And fearfully and wonderfully made, let us bless the Lord.
Thank you. You can just take the chair. I'm coming down there.